Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to this Skipton and Ripon Area Committee. The agenda is quite straightforward. Apologies for absence. I thought we had two, but we've only one now. Nathan Hall's not with us today.
He's actually on Teams, Chair. Councillor Hull's joined us on Teams, so he's attending virtually.
Is he? Right. We've got him. Minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of December 25. Could someone move those as a true and correct record? Thank you. Can we agree those? Thank you. Declarations of interest. Good morning, Andrew. Declarations of interest. Public questions and statements. I believe we have two.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We had planned to take Sir Julian's item first and then go on to public questions afterwards, if that's okay.
And we have Sir Julian's in attendance. I can see top of his head there, yeah.
Morning, Chair.
Good morning, Sir Julian. The floor is yours.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. Pleasure to be with you all. It's obviously been a busy few months since we last spoke. We've got the immediate crisis in the Middle East, which obviously is subject to a lot of debate here in Parliament, and particularly around the potential knock-on effects on pricing and cost of living. And obviously that issue just is worth sort of stressing here, is raising lots of questions about our own defence spending. That, I think, will be a topic that will continue to be returned to over the coming weeks and months here in Parliament. Other bills and activity that's been happening here, which is very relevant locally, is the special needs white paper, where the government is looking to reform the special needs environment and structure and funding. And I've been working hard and met with the ministers this week, and lots of input from families and a number of people around this table with regard to that topic. Local government funding has been a big focus of my time as well, because, as you know, the North Yorkshire Council funding settlement and the local government funding settlement has just taken place. Wasn't quite as bad as we thought it would be, but still hammering on rural councils from this government. First, they removed the rural services grant, and now, significant reductions coming on the local government settlement. Other bills that have occurred here which are very relevant are the Employment Rights Bill, and that is obviously impacting constituents' businesses in Skipton and Ripon. The main features of that are increased cost to businesses for unfair dismissal, and also an introduction of much earlier rights of the employee on versus employers. So I think for a small business, what I've been looking out for is how do we, how can that be mitigated? Because I think that's a significant additional burden at a time when, as we know, there are lots and lots of pressures on small businesses. We had the spring statement yesterday, which continues to show, in my view, that we're up against it, and we need to really be supporting hospitality businesses, small businesses on the high street. And I know many of you have been doing that, and I've been working hard to try to campaign for lower rates, lower energy costs for these businesses, because many women and men are working extremely hard, and even in profitable businesses locally, I think, struggling to turn a profit, which we need them to do to create the jobs for, unfortunately, the increasing number of young people that are unable currently to find a job, and which is really worrying parents that I'm meeting, and that's why we need to support our local businesses. Thank you, Chair.
Nick Brown indicated first.
Good morning, Julian.
Hi, Nick.
You're looking terribly well, I have to say. Well done.
Thank you.
All I can say, I did watch you in Parliament on my bête noire about rural areas and oil prices, and thank you for raising matters on energy costs for rural areas, which I wanted very quickly. I know we've got it on the agenda a bit later this morning, but I just thought you ought to be aware that oil prices for those people who live in rural areas that don't have gas are still a major problem. And I just wanted to give you, I don't know whether you've got a pen handy, but I could speak to you outside of the meeting. My last bill for 500 litres of kerosene oil was back in the 18th of February, and it came for 500 litres to £340.57. I rang last Monday, and it was delivered yesterday for 500 litres of oil from my normal supplier, and it went up. It has gone up to £419.74, which is a £80 increase for the same level of delivery, 500 litres. And it just shows that, I think there's a bit of profiteering there, because, the oil prices don't go up that quickly in terms of deliveries to the oil companies within the space of 3 days after the war. But I think everyone talks about electricity and gas in Parliament, but those who are using heating oil in rural areas seem to get forgotten, apart from your good intervention yourself. But I just thought I'd mention that particular sum of money, because £80 to your average rural resident is a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah.
And but that just shows what is happening in rural areas when oil prices do go up, and we very rarely get any support from government to take that into account. There's limits on electricity and gas and all the rest of it, but oil seems to get forgotten in rural areas.
Okay,
so
well,
that's
thanks,
what I
Nick.
wanted to raise.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I will keep an eye on that. And it is obviously an issue for many constituents, particularly in sparse and remote areas. So I will keep an eye on that and could keep raising that issue.
Thank you very much indeed.
Any other member? Mr. Murley.
Thanks, Chairman. Morning, Sir Julian. I wanted to raise the issue of the draft national planning policy framework, particularly in respect to the national park. The new draft really drives a coach and horses through our new just local plan, which is just going through the inspector. And as an example, permitted development will mean that, as it stands in the national park, all existing buildings, farm buildings, barns, will be permitted development rights for those for planners. In other words, the current document really disables the all national parks from their statutory duties to preserve the heritage and make it available to the public. So I think the national parks will be writing. The national park will be writing to you as well. But I just wanted to draw your attention to this, that they've really excluded the protected landscapes from the protections that really enable them to exist.
Yeah, well, look, I might get just somebody to give you a call about that, Andrew, just talk a bit further, just somebody from my office, because we can do some work on that. I mean, I'm probably we may be slightly at variance in terms of I kind of do want the park to do more, but I accept that obviously you don't want to free rein. And so if somebody can give you a call and we can just have a further chat, and then I'll try and just tease out some questions here on that for you.
You, Chairman. Morning, Julian.
Hi, David. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Julian, you're fully aware of the problems at Angus Fire in Bentham with the PFAS that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
At the end of March, ITV are doing a programme on it. And it's very concerning that I think this will be a one-sided debate. And Bentham, Ingleton and that area, Settle, rely heavily on tourism. And I wonder if there's anything that you can do to give a more balanced view of the procedures there. The Environment Agency have been very cautious in giving any permission for them to deal with this treated water that they're doing.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could contact them, Paul Williams.
Yeah. So David, I am in touch with them, and I've been in touch with them for the last since this issue happened, and I've visited and have also convened meetings with the EA. But I think you're right. The Environmental Select Committee came from Parliament actually, and as you know, visited the site, and I've talked to committee members about that visit. I think that my sense is that the company is doing the right thing, and there is a statutory framework that the Environment Agency is working through. And obviously, if there are other things either the company or local campaigners want to talk to me about, I'm happy to. But I think there is a process going through. I know the specific issue of the water retention is ongoing. I thought it was easing a bit, David, but I'm happy to chat to them about that. But I think my main message is that Bentham is open to tourism, and there is a process led by the regulator making sure that this whatever issue there are is investigated, and I think it's important that is the main message.
It's certainly, they're still collecting water, Julian. I think the old process has been about £4.5 million they've spent now, but it's really doing the reputation no good. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Next up, Mr. Richard Foster, please.
Just back to the MPPF, Julian, and the national parks. I've sent you through the response that the national park is making to this, so if you can have a look through before you have a conversation with Councillor Murday, really. Because it's more the development in open countryside, so we have those remote field barns that could potentially suddenly have a car and a swing and a slide outside, which I don't think anybody particularly wants within the national park, either inside or out. So it's really around that where we've got to remember that it is a protected landscape, and as such it should be protected. So I think it's a consultation at the moment, and they normally forget about national parks until the very end, when suddenly they remember again and just give the national parks their exemptions back. But we have put a lot of work into local planning. It would be a shame if it was overwritten overnight by a new set of planning policy, national planning policy guidelines.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's helpful. I'll look at that, and then I'll get my office to speak to Andrew, and I'll talk to you, Richard, just about anything else.
Morning, Julian. A couple of things, again, MPPF related, first point. I've been doing quite a lot of work with on community-led housing recently, and it's come to my attention that the provision in the draft at the moment is a very much watered-down version of what there is at the moment. And also in the council's own local plan, there's no ambition to make provision for community-led housing and policy there. So there's a gap, which I would really like some assistance with in trying to help lobby to address. As you know, in small rural communities, this community-led housing can provide, vital housing for locals where housing providers won't meet. So it'd be great if you could look at that for me. And the other point is something we've been discussing recently, which is the lack of masts for mobile coverage. And thank you very much for your assistance in making contact with Baroness Lloyd, but I did find her response a little bit disappointing. It's encouraging to hear that Home Office masts are going up in the constituency, but they are all very much on the Skipton and Settle side, and there's absolutely none going up in the Ripon area. And as I've already written to you, it'd be great if she could reconsider that. Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll follow up on that. I mean, I think this mast issue is coming up a lot, just in terms of general, phone connectivity, but also, as was discussed, smart meters as well. So yeah, we will follow that and push that. And then perhaps, is it possible to send me an email just with regard to the specific element on the community housing, that what's the gap that you're seeing, and then I will ask some questions and we can speak to ministers about that, because I think North Yorkshire has been doing some excellent work, and Councillor Myers and the teams, the civil servants, and many of you have done a lot of work on these community housing projects, which actually are in advance of many areas in the UK. So we really want to make sure that the legislation is supporting those.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, I will. Thank you.
I believe it's Councillor Mr. Andrew Brown next.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to say, Julian, that clearly companies, well, the impact on tourism of the discharge of PFCs into a local river is obviously significant. But just to be aware that there's also strong concerns about the fact that's been going on, and not to avoid putting pressure on the company to cure the fundamental problem, because the problem isn't just one of perception, it's one of the highest level of PFCs in any river in England, as far as I understand it, and they are not nice things. So, both at the same time as making sure the company's supported, can we make sure the problem's sorted?
Yeah, look, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, I think that the issue is really serious, as you say. I think my only point, and it was not to make a judgment on it, is just there was quite a lot, particularly 6-12 months ago, of media speculation about how the issue was being handled, and I had convened the EA and the company and others just to check that, and I do think that is being managed well. What it shows, and who's at fault and whatever, I agree. I mean that needs to be done without fear or favour. But I think it is being managed. But I will continue to keep an eye on it.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, Julian. Just on the community-led housing, which you were kind enough to compliment North Yorkshire Council on its work on this. Part of the benefit of our second homes council tax premium is the £4 million that we're putting into community-led housing over the next 4 years, including facilitating communities in setting up community land trusts and so on. But what I am delighted to say, for those who missed it, is that the Craven Land Trust, which has been going for a number of years without actually being able to secure any housing for residents, thanks to the second homes council tax premium, will now be acquiring 2 new homes in Settle. So that's the start of a journey for them. And once you've got 2, you can have more. So I'm delighted to say that is happening. I hope we'll be able to do something up in Felicity's patch, but I think the problem's more with the planners than with the funding.
Policy.
Yes.
That's the point of the meeting.
Yeah. No, that's really useful. I think, I mean, I made this point in an interview and defended, obviously there've been some people questioning the second home tax, but I mean, I'm a big supporter of it. Just to confirm, Councillor Myers, that the income from that is hypothecated, or all of that goes towards community housing projects. Is that right broadly?
It's even more right than broadly, Julian. So it probably raises about £12 million a year, of which the police and fire services get about 2 million. So it leaves us with a net 10 million. Every penny of that is spent on helping to develop more social housing and then various forms of specialist housing across North Yorkshire. We are unique, I believe, in England, in that we are not propping up our revenue budget with that money, despite the difficult financial times that we find ourselves in. That money is wholly committed to housing, and I think it's one of the great achievements of North Yorkshire Council.
Yeah.
And the important thing for those who are not happy with it to remember is that we have 9,000 people on housing waiting lists in North Yorkshire and 8,200 second homes. Never mind the Airbnbs and short-term holiday lets and all the rest of it.
Yeah, good. No, I think it's really positive. One other thing, Chair, just related to this, and I'll send you and the committee secretary the information, is the community energy announcements that the Secretary of State for Energy made about 2 weeks ago. Those are interesting announcements about funding for community energy projects. We've obviously had a range of these across the area, but there are new funds earmarked, and whether it's tying up with some of these community housing projects, or whether it's any of the councillors here today's constituencies and areas, it may be worth looking at those projects. I've also asked questions of the government around, could those community energy projects be linked in with small businesses or business parks? Because, as you know, the energy cost element of business costs continues to cause many challenges. But I'll send that documentation around for anybody that hasn't seen it.
Sir David Staveley, please.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, Julian.
Morning, David.
Could I ask if it's possible to once again look into getting an update from Arla about the ongoing future of the site in Settle that's been put down for closure? I know there was sort of initial indications that they were looking at solutions, and it would be nice, I think, for the community to understand what the future of that site is from the people that own it, and obviously have the responsibility. Things have gone awfully quiet on that front, and it would be, as I say, a timely point in that lead up to its closure to sort of know what their plans or aspirations are for the site.
Yeah, absolutely happy to do that, David, and we can have a joint call with them.
Thank you very much, Sir Julian, for your attendance.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
We've given you a good working over this morning. Right, can we revert back to item, is it 4 on this agenda? Public questions and statements. We have 2 this morning. First one is Mr. Edwin Rothwell. If Mr. Rothwell will come and address us.
Thank you.
Could I remind you, Mr. Rothwell, good morning, that you have up to 3 minutes. There will be no debate, and the clerk, Miss Harriet Clark, a lot of clerks here, isn't there, will read out a response from the office.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, and glad to hear community-led housing already being discussed today. So just wanted to thank everyone for support and encouragement. The last time I brought a question here just over a year ago, the input and discussions have been really useful. Just to update on what I've been doing, I've set up a charity to facilitate Skipton Pride celebrations, and we held our first event as a charity last August. The feedback's been really incredible, and we're hoping to repeat that again this summer. My community interest company has started trading as a coffee shop on Swadford Street, and this has already started building a community of customers. And I've used that space to spark discussions around the town investment plan, and I've been lucky to hear lots of opinions, which I'm going to collate and feed into the plan before it closes on 20th of March. Just a reminder that I spoke here previously about regeneration in Skipton and the desire for my community interest company to eventually start a housing project. So I have noted on your work agenda that this committee is interested in the vacant space above shops. Converting these to residential is often not commercially viable with extra obstacles like listed status. So it seems to be the case that conversion of these spaces does require an intervention to unlock the potential housing. And with that in mind, I am interested in how I can help with that. As a delivery partner, how I intend to apply to, well, just to let you know that I intend to apply to the Stage 1 Community Housing Fund to set up a Skipton Community Benefit Society, SCBS, which will aim to provide housing with genuinely affordable rents reserved for young people who can demonstrate that they want to stay in the area. So I anticipate that the SCBS will be able to build a membership, gather sources of funding, such as from Homes England and the Combined Authority Brownfield Housing Fund, to bring disused space in Skipton Town Centre back to life, but in a high quality and energy efficient way. So my question is whether this is something the committee would support. What is the committee's interest in the space above shops, and would the committee have any concerns about this? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your question and for the continued engagement you have shown with the work of the Skipton and Ripon Area Committee. It is encouraging to hear about the progress you have made since your last update to the committee. The community housing team met with Mr Rothwell on the 24th of February 2026 in Skipton and was supportive of his ambition to provide affordable housing in the area. Following that meeting, the team shared examples of completed community-led housing schemes and provided him with a blank grant application form for the Community Development Setup Fund. Our understanding was that he would take these materials away to review and to discuss with the wider community to gauge interest and identify whether others might wish to join him in bringing forward affordable homes. In relation to the Skipton Town Investment Plan, Mr Rothwell was invited to and attended the initial stakeholder engagement event on the 9th of February 2026, representing Heart of Skipton Community Interest Company. We value his contribution to the discussions which will help shape the priorities of the Town Investment Plan, and we will ensure he continues to be invited to participate in future engagement opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our colleague Margaret Nicholson to come and address us, please. Good to see you both. Good to see you, Roger.
Right. Not used to these. Used to standing and speaking without. My question, Chairman, is what is the progress on providing a footpath on Sutton Lane, which goes from Sutton in Craven to Eastbourne and Airedale Hospital, after a fatality more than 4 years ago when a 9-year-old boy was killed?
Thank you. We have a response from Richard Marr. I will everybody to make sure we read out.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your question. The project is one that needs input from both North Yorkshire Council and the City of Bradford Metropolitan District Council, CBMDC. From North Yorkshire Council's perspective, the scheme is agreed with the necessary landowners and the legal transfer of land should be completed before the end of the financial year. North Yorkshire Council is also assisting the CBMDC with their acquisitions, and although progressing positively, the CBMDC are still at the early stages of negotiation. The scheme itself is still being led by and will be ordered by the CBMDC, but work can only commence once the legal acquisitions are complete. Thank you.
Yes, Margaret. If we all keep the pressure on, we'll achieve it.
I must admit, Chairman, I couldn't understand all these DCMs and goodness knows what else. Those. What worries me, Chairman, that this has been going on for such a long time. I've got letters. I've looked back in my press and I found a letter dated the 10th of October 2016. Approximately 4 or 5 years ago, allowed 3 minutes to beg North Yorkshire Area 3 Committee to provide a pavement. Photos are shown of the conflict between pedestrians and the heavy traffic. But the thing that worries me, Chairman, is that the last paragraph is, some dark night there will be a major accident on this road, which has not been changed since I moved to Sutton in 1946. I am old. And used by horses and carts. That is one thing, Chairman. And the other thing is a letter sent on the 8th of December 2016. After hearing public comments at Sutton Parish Council 2 months ago, the local highways officer did take on board talking to Bradford Met about the dangerous lack of adequate lighting on the lane on their side of the boundary. Hopefully this will come to fruition. It didn't, Chairman. It was dark when that little boy was killed. They have improved the lighting, but it still is not adequate. We have 2 chicanes, Chairman, which make it more difficult for pedestrians to cross the road. Now, Sutton is a very old village. The main road leaves Cross Hills, goes into the village, past South Craven School, which I believe is still the largest school in the area, past a primary school and another church school, and they then go to the lane. Now, we're an old mill village. We have terraced houses. We've got very little off-street parking. But at one meeting that I presented, round about 2010, I think it was, I showed photographs of just how narrow it was. Nothing has gone further from that. We are given promises, Chairman, but nothing happens. So
I'll have to bring you to a halt there.
Sorry?
I've been very tolerant.
Yes, I know.
Out of respect for all your public service over the...
If I could just finish it, Chairman, with saying the traffic has proved fatal. We have another fatality which happened about 4 weeks ago outside the primary school, well, not outside the primary school, but very near to it on the road. I understand the police are looking into it, Chairman, because there are still questions to be asked about the driving, but this was another innocent person that was killed. So we have the same road and we have traffic, Chairman. I am very concerned about Bradford Met. I really am. It's beyond your control now. You're trying to do what you can, North Yorkshire is, but Bradford Met, I've no confidence, Chairman.
Thank you very much. And I'm equally confident, thank you very much, and Roger, of course. I'm confident that Philip Barrett's, as ever, is pursuing this case. Perhaps involve Mr. Trump. Thank you very much, Margaret. Thank you very much.
I was trying.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Who's
Chair.
speaking first? Could you introduce yourselves, please?
We on?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Eleanor Nussiter. I'm the Head of Communications Engagement for the New Hospital Programme and came to committee, I think, about a year ago last.
Thank you. I'm Freya Sledding. I'm Clinical Director of the New Hospital Programme at Airedale, Securing the Future. I've not been to the committee to date, but here for an update with Eleanor. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
We'll move it.
Sorry. I'll start off with you.
Yeah. Okay, so just bear with me because I can't see the slides moving, but Harriet's going to move on. So if we just start on the first one about the journey to hospital. This was just a reminder, this was how we would speak when I came last time. We just ran through the different stages of work that are involved and what we're pretty much through the first stage now, because that was all about where we were finding where we would be building the hospital and some of the planning and preparation needed for that. And we're on with getting the site ready, which is a very big piece of work. We touched on last time about the plans for the car park. I think that had just gone out when I was here last time, and the new access road. and we're also on with actually designing the hospital. So the really exciting bit that everybody's interested in. And it was just a reminder that we talk about it as a journey, but a lot of this is happening in parallel just due to the urgency. So it's not really a nice, straightforward, linear process. Harriet, if you could move us on. So where we, I need my glasses for this to remind me. So where we are with getting the site ready, we put in the application for the car park, multi-storey car park, just before Christmas. So we're just waiting still to hear back on that. It's very much around ensuring sufficient parking, which we know is currently an issue for people, for our patients, visitors and staff, both during and after the build. And there's also planning gone in for the new access road, and that's going to help manage the flow of the traffic, but it will also mean that while we're building, that it can be used for construction traffic and really help keep that away from patients and the services in the main hospital. There's still work that's needed around additional electricity and building the new substation, which we're waiting for, and the contractor compound. Probably the next things that people will see happening on site, we've got to drop the overhead power lines that run. So these are all not the most exciting things and things that will cause disruption, unfortunately, in terms of parking, although that will be managed mainly through staff parking. But it is very much necessary work. So really hoping it gives people assurance that the hospital is coming as they see these things happening. One of the other things we've talked about was about the need to take down some of the buildings and move some services around, which we're on with doing, just to sort of assure members that all patient services for patients will remain on site. We've managed to achieve that, but where some of our services don't need direct patient contact, such as, for example, our digital care hub or our admin and support functions like our HR functions, building the new hospital team, we're looking at off-site provision for those staff, which we're hoping to find a solution. Well, we've found a solution. We're just working through delivering that very shortly. Harriet, if you could move us on. Oh, thanks. So in terms of the design phase, very, very much urgency remains. I don't know if members saw the report that was issued about RAC Trust, again, just sort of at the end of the year, but it was doing a review of where we are, and in light of what was originally a 2030 deadline for replacing the hospitals. So that had found that while the work that's been done has extended the life of the hospitals or those buildings, that the recommendation was that they should be built as soon as feasibly possible, which I realise doesn't give an exact number, but that was the actual recommendation. We're hoping for a start date in 28-29. I'm saying hoping because as part of the national programme, we're being sort of scheduled a bit like a flight deck of who's going when, because they've got 16 hospitals in the first wave. So we're just waiting for confirmation. But at the moment, that is what we are working towards. And in terms of speeding things up, we're now looking at how we could build the hospital in one go. The original thought was if we could do it in two parts to help us maintain the services in the existing hospital while that happened. But we're now looking at how we could make it happen even quicker by doing it in a single build. So that has quite a lot of implications for the design. And in order to start work in 28-29, it will mean we need our outline planning application to go in this summer. So that's where we're working towards getting designs ready towards that. And again, in that sort of non-linear journey, we're having to do several parts of that work in parallel rather than sequentially, as you might expect. Harriet, moving on. So just to explain a bit about the design of the hospital. So Freya's going to come on and talk about some of the work that's gone on that's informing that, like our clinical services strategy, and also very importantly what we're doing around moving some of the services into community. So by which I mean community appropriately, not the services that have to be delivered in a hospital. And there's been an awful lot of work going on in the planning stage around that. That included using the demand and capacity modelling that we've done, where we've talked about looking at population growth, disease prevalence, and what that means in terms of what's needed going forward. And then we have a model, which again, Freya will come and talk about, the national model called Hospital 2.0, which is essentially a template. So we're sort of multiplying that against our what our patients and population will need looking forward. And that gives us a sort of the shape and the size of the hospital. And we're using all of that together to sort of produce this outline design and the concept, if you like. So it's a bit like being given a Lego kit. We know how many pieces of each piece of Lego we need, and then we've got to assemble assemble them all into the form that gives us that design. Part of the direction from the national programme as well is that we look at including some of the non-RAP buildings we've got as part of the design, which again puts some challenges in. So we do have some new, very good estate, our new intensive care unit, some new theatre buildings. They're not ideally located for where we're trying to build the hospital, so it's working out they may be used for different purposes. But again, for value for money and making best use of public money, that's the approach we're taking. And while we're doing all this, we're also starting to work on some of the more detailed individual department layouts. So we have a very set kit again for that with the Hospital 2.0 model, but we're working that all through with our staff for each service to see, how we need to make that work for Airedale. And I suppose the bit to stress, as you'd expect, is we have a very fixed financial envelope and we have to manage to deliver all of that within it. It's part of the agreement. Just before I hand over to Freya to talk about that in a bit more detail, we have done some work and conversations with our local communities, including a lot in our North Yorkshire sector, to sort of just test out the areas that people are, really wanting from the new hospital and their priorities. So while there is this very fixed approach, there are areas of influence and making sure we can really make the hospital a welcoming, inclusive place that people feel safe in and can get the care they need and a really positive experience. So we're just highlighting, we'll share the slides after, but we've heard a lot about, as we get into the more detailed design, things around that people want in terms of wayfinding, accessibility, things that we could improve around that. And then the general feel of the hospital, wanting that bright, clean, spacious environment, thinking about lots of natural light, how we include bringing elements of the rural setting into that design as well, so that people can benefit from things like views and green space, which again are known to be very important for recovery. So I suppose we're just wanting to assure members that we are very much listening to local people about what they want, and have been, as Freya will come on and talk about, where we're looking at service improvement and how we'll deliver care, that there's a very strong patient and public voice coming through that. So I'll just hand over to Freya to talk more through about some of that detail.
Thank you. Have a look at this. Thank you. You can hear me okay now. Lovely, lovely. So Ellie talked about Hospital 2.0. So as part of the national programme, this is a new way of building hospitals, and it's a template that all hospitals will go through. We're obviously on the first wave, so we're at that forefront of testing those designs out. But actually it's based on the national and international best practice. And the things that are key to that are that it is using modern methods of construction, so modular build. So a lot of the actual building will be built off site and will be brought into site to construct. There are lots of standardised templates for the wards. So there's a ward template, a theatres template. A lot of the outpatient sort of the clinic room set out is standardised. One of the major differences that this hospital will deliver on is the 100% single room, and I think that that's probably been talked about before. So all the rooms will be en suite and single, and this is a national direction of travel, both nationally and internationally, that's shown to enhance sort of patient experience, recovery. It's shown to improve infection control and decrease of hospital-acquired infections. So that's the way we're going, and we're doing a lot of work around that. Obviously, that's a very different way of nursing that we have, and we're doing lots of engagement work with our clinical teams around that. Those single rooms will be very much digitally enabled to get the most out of those rooms as well. So as well as the standard templates, we have to look at adjacencies and look at what services need to be close to each other so that they work in a more better flow of things. So your diagnostics next to your ED, for example, your theatres next to ED. So we've done a lot of work around the layout of the services and how that will then mass and stack up to give the overall look of the building. I did mention digital technology in the single rooms, but it will be built into the walls of the hospital will digital, and it won't be a secondary thing. So everything that we can possibly improve around our processes, around wayfinding, around tracking equipment, around systems working closer to each other will be looked at, and we've done a lot of engagement with staff around what digital technology will improve them to be able to deliver safe and effective care. But overall, the aims of Hospital 2.0 is to decrease the average time to build and build hospitals at the reducing cost. And we're working really closely with the other Wave 1 buildings around this. Next step, next slide. So way back in 2024, we started to look at how we were going to develop, how we were going to deliver services right into the future. And we did a co-production piece with our clinical colleagues and our stakeholders around developing the strategy. And this is the clinical strategy that's really outlining the vision for the hospital and out of hospital care. So it's really guiding how we build the hospital, and it really sets out how the clinical services will practice and will change and transform to maximise facilities for Airedale's population. Very much aligns with the delivery of the Bradford District and Craven Health and Wellbeing Strategy, and it describes how we'll work with partners to transform into a community and population hub. It is ambitious, it's very future looking, and it's it takes us right to being in the new hospital and operating in the hospital, and we need to do that in partnership with others. Next slide, please. A key part of the strategy, obviously the previous slide outlines all the key factors in the strategy, but one that you'll be interested in and is really close to my heart is the shift of hospital to community. So as part of the building the new hospital, we've been talking, as Ellie says, to local people around how we improve services that we provide in community, and this is very much in line with the 10-year plan and the Bradford and District Health and Wellbeing Strategy. You know that we already provide some services in Settle and Skipton Hospital, but we know we need to go further and bring those services closer to communities. The aim is to deliver as much care in communities by 2040 than we possibly can, with people only going to hospital for very acute, serious, complex treatment. And this is quite a challenge, really. You know our geography and the range of services that we have to distribute across those 700 square miles and the population of 200,000, all with very different health needs. So we're working with health and care partners to develop this neighbourhood health service, which supports this approach. So very much aligned with the developments that are happening around that neighbourhood health approach in supporting people in their own homes and their communities. Next slide. So our thoughts so far, this is what's the planning. We're looking at what types of services could be safely and effectively provided in community settings. And we've summarised them in these three headings. So a lot of outpatient care could be provided close to people's own homes and not enable them to go to the hospital for that. Some of it needs that very acute element of it, but some of the nurse consultant-led appointments, audiology, some of the therapies could be delivered more in communities. We're keen that obviously more of the diagnostics from the imaging and radiography, so CT scans, ultrasounds, X-rays, DEXA scanning is provided in community settings and not in hospital sites. And there'd be wider diagnostics around specific tests for specific conditions, really. And then we've very much heard that people like the cancer bus element, the mobile element of it. So we're looking in how we can deliver more services on that model. And we've clearly heard that people like the idea of one-stop clinics. So coming to see multiple professions together, having the diagnostics at the same time, and it being much more coordinated. So one visit's needed rather than multiple. So we're asking people what they think and what they'd like to see provided in those community settings, and we're trying to determine how we can best do that. Next slide, please. As part of developing our clinical strategy and how the hospital will work when it's built, we've been delivering what we call a TOM, which is Target Operating Model for Airedale, and it describes how we will deliver those services with our partners from 2030 and beyond. So we've looked at different pathways for each of the clinical services, from referral right to completion and follow-up, and opportunities how to work those services more integrated, more linked up into the system. So we've done that with our staff and partners and had some patient representation into those workshops. We've done a second lot of workshops where we've cohorted elements. So we've focused on how would urgent and emergency care work, how would the community support the hospital, how outpatients would work, and then looked at the inpatient elements, so the planned and elective care, and then the unplanned and non-elective care. So we're now pulling that TOM together, and it's illustrating how we're going to work. Some of the themes, patients took part in some of the service workshops, but also we've been out to community groups and held engagement sessions to look at what patients want, and really building on what Ellie said, people want getting to hospital to be as stress-free as possible. So it's easy to get to, it's easy to find, it's easy to park, it's easy to get to where you're going. We've heard that really good communication is really important, and it's clear that we don't always get that right. So clear information on where appointments, where to go, told if you're running late, how to get in touch with people, how to navigate the whole journey really, and that communication to be a two-way communication. And we've heard about privacy as well, giving bad news within areas that are shared isn't what we want to do. Having conversations overheard by others, so privacy is a real thing that we're trying to do, and also making sure the environment meets the needs of the wide range of people that use it. So from people with dementia, from mental health conditions, people who have neurodiversity. We know coming to hospital is quite a stressful occasion, and we're trying to make it as unstressful as possible, really. That's where we're up to. I'll let us any questions we've got around the presentation today.
Excellent. Mr. David Staveley and then Mr. Andy Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, encouraging to hear your conversation about outpatients. Does feel a little bit like Groundhog Day for me.
Okay.
Because we've discussed this at some length, and an awful lot of work was done about looking at health provision in the Mid-Craven area, going back a few years ago. I mean, it did feel like we were getting very close, and then there was a small issue of COVID came up, and that put a coach and horses through pretty much everything. Clearly, there's a map of healthcare in any given area, and it's not all under your control or gift. But nonetheless, there is an awful lot of provision in Settle of various types, and I don't think I'm being unfair to some of those providers to say it's somewhat creaking at the seams a little bit in terms of its ability to provide for a growing community and the capacity it's got. We also obviously have the facility that you do have in your control, which is the Castleberg facility, hosted in a rather splendid looking Victorian workhouse, which I'm sure is and previously has been a source of concern for a variety of reasons. Now, this council, North Yorkshire Council, does have land assets which were mooted before for this purpose. So I think what I'm getting at is I would like to get this conversation going again with some pace, really, and some purpose, Clearly, we need to try, if possible, to bring various disciplines together on one site and, without speaking too crassly, make it pay. Because ultimately, it's budgets that make these things happen. I think we have got a good opportunity. So I would ask that we go forward with this. And if you could get in touch and we could start looking at bringing something together and maybe dig out some of the old work that was done. It may find we could get somewhere, because I say there's North Yorkshire has assets in the town as well, yourselves, and of course there's the GP surgery, which is a private practice. So trying to get all these together, and then of course the various other potential stakeholders who may be available, given that land asset that North Yorkshire holds, I think we could sort of help meet the aspirations of the mid-Craven communities for the coming decades. Certainly at this moment in time, it's going to start struggling if it isn't already. I believe there's broom cupboards that are turned into offices. I may stand corrected, but a visit to one of the facilities, it was a bit surprising how crowded it was. So.
Yeah, as part of the work we've done, we've really looked at our satellite sites where we deliver services out of them. And you're right, they are very crowded. And we've got to the point where we can't deliver anymore, and we look at how we do that. We have had some conversations with the Unitary Authority about their developing health on the high street models. So we're specifically fed in some ideas around Skipton and settle into that. So yeah, I'd welcome a conversation and have a look at how far you got last time pre-COVID. Yeah, predecessors. Yeah, we'll dig that out.
We now turn to the Browns. Andy Brown first, and then Nick Brown.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk in that about parking, and obviously parking is both expensive for users and very land hungry. And I'm really interested to know what plans you have to connect the bottom of the site to the railway station, because it's a very short walk from the bottom of the site to the railway station. And we did ask at previous meetings, whether that could be a priority. That's my first question. Secondly, many points. Really pleased to hear, using the most modern methods of construction, but just a touch nervous because RAC was one of the most modern methods of construction. And I'm just really concerned that we're on a national model which imposes on you whatever the developers have lobbied for. And we could be re-entering the same cycle. It really just strikes me as very worrying. Thirdly, just to say the point about every room being single, I do think you lose something in terms of isolation and community from going too far down that route. I've spent most of last year watching somebody spend a lot of time in hospital, and the benefits of being able to achieve some bonding with people in the same circumstance are not to be underestimated. They're real. The final thing to say is a more positive thing: community setting. Well done.
Yeah, if we do those in order, I'll pass over to Freya because you saw her nodding a lot during what you were saying there. About the public transport. So yes, that is something we are trying where we can to influence. And it was interesting hearing some of the discussion earlier about footpaths, because there's an issue as well from a footpath from the station up to the site that we're trying to address. I guess, and I know we've sort of touched on this before, a lot of this isn't in our influence. We can't do anything about the station. It's private land that we'd need to go through. We can't use funding for anything except actually building the hospital. But what we are trying to do is have a lot of conversations with the people that can, and ask for help with lobbying from people who can influence to get things done, like reopening the footpath to make access to the station better, with buses, that we're looking at what some of the work that will be done on site will allow some of the bigger buses to get on site. At the moment, you can only accommodate some of the smaller ones, so it's very limited for routes. But what we're trying to do is we are speaking to the West Yorkshire Collaborative Combined Authority, who have the lead about the planning, to make sure that's factored in with the new hospital and the number of people who will be using it, and can we reopen some of the discussions about that. And I don't think we're on the list for a tram where we are as some of their projects, but it's certainly a conversation conversation around the buses. And we're also, just for awareness, trying to have some of those conversations in the light of the fact that we need to get an awful lot of cars off site while we build this. And we're looking at solutions primarily for staff parking, but how we can get staff parked on other sites and brought in as well. So because we are going to lose, the new car park is being built on the existing, one of the existing car parks. So there's a lot of different pieces to this. So and we are very much sort of wanting to bring together, one of the things we're trying to make happen is a discussion event with the transport providers, all the people involved, so they can hear directly. We can at least report back all the feedback we're getting around these and the suggestions that are being made and put them out there so they are discussed. Because I think while we can't solve some of them, we can escalate it and try and be a bit of a conduit for making things happen. So certainly appreciate people supporting that. Freya, you'll pick up about the single rooms, won't you? And the other point, I suppose the issue about the rack and the modular one is, it's a fair point, and it is one being challenged over. It's come through the sort of best practice routes, and it's not just about doing this quickly, it is about longevity, and assured that it will be significantly better than what we've currently got. So we're asking similar questions as well. I'll pass to Freya to pick up your others.
And just to add that the construction element, it gives us more flexibility. So actually, we know that hospital doesn't stay the same as it progresses, and this modern way of working actually gives more flexibility of changing what was a ward into something else, what was a department into another area. So there are positives around it, but I do hear what you say.
With that. Just the footpath to the station, the number of people who will come by train is out of all proportion to the number of people who will come by bus. And it's such a short distance to that station if you actually walk in a direct line.
Just on... Oh, sorry.
Did you want the other points, though, the rooms? Single rooms you'd asked about, haven't you?
Well, I think the flexibility.
No, can I just come in on the single rooms? So the single rooms, I hear what you're saying, that there are many positives of single rooms that I outlined, but there are some downsides, and you've illustrated them. Sort of the socialisation element of it, the peer support element of it is something that we're concerned about. Actually deconditioning, so actually, particularly with older people, because they've got an ensuite, they're not walking as much in hospital, and actually they could actually deteriorate. So we've done some work around that, around trying to mitigate the downsides of single rooms and maximising the upsides of the single rooms. I can say on the design, if people have been into Airedale, our day rooms aren't great at the moment. So that social space where people can come out of their rooms and mix with other people, have their visitors, there isn't that greater, and they do vary ward to ward. On the ward design, there is a support space just for that purpose, really, within the ward. And there is also different functions that will enable that. So I've been working with our therapists around doing more group work in that, if the environment allows us to do, which it will, so that we're bringing people out of their rooms when they are able to engage into rehabilitation. So we're giving it a lot of thought. It's a challenge, but I think it's just balancing the good things with the bad things and trying to mitigate them.
Thank you very much, Chairman. A very good report. Thank you for that. I totally understand what my Green friend here is talking about single wards. I think they do have a downside as well. Certainly when elderly patients are in a ward, they can make a lot of noise. But I do understand the point you're making, but it's not that easy to determine what you do. My involvement in health is more Eastern orientated because I'm the governor, stakeholder governor for North Yorkshire on Harrogate District Foundation Trust. And I just wanted to mention about parking, because parking in Harrogate Hospital is really difficult. And I hope you're aware of that, because whatever my Green colleagues might want us all to use public transport, which really doesn't exist at the moment in any great measure, Cars will be electric eventually, so cars will always be needed in rural areas. And if you learn from the experiences of Harrogate, there's not enough car parking spaces. So I just wanted to raise that because it is a real issue in Harrogate. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
So just to respond to that, it's a real issue for Airedale as well, although we have more parking than Harrogate does. So you're right. We did a lot of work to get people's views for the car park to make it as well when we were designing it. So that's been taken into account, as well as the sort of how people travel around the site. And some of the provision that's been made partly on the basis of that feedback is a lot more. There'll be more spaces overall, wider spaces for people, families, carers, disabled. There will be a definite increase, a considerable increase in the number of disabled or accessibility spaces, not just within the car park, but some surface areas and drop-offs and things as well, to make it easy for people to take relatives and then go and park if they're not so mobile. And there's a big increase in the number of electric charging points. So we are trying to sort of look ahead and future-proof while balancing it with trying to improve what we can on public transport. So we're covering as many needs as we can within it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman, and thanks for what you said in response to Councillor Brown about looking at different modes of transport, because people who are local to Airedale know the situation in respect of transport, traffic generation around that site, and anything we can do to actually help or ease that situation, very much appreciated, and I hope you do well working with the Combined Authority, etc., trying to get some help with the different, modes of transport there, which should be certainly help access to the patient, help with delays and cutting down delays and things like that, because it is a real problem, as you know, working on that side, And also, may I just add, Chairman, just want to thank you for your update. You're very much appreciated. You've come before to give us updates on the progress. And thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Just to add as well, when Freya's been talking about the community services, we're obviously trying to factor in the transport and parking and things for that. And that's one of the things we've heard, that when we talked about the shift out to community, people are saying, yes, but we need to be able to get there as well. We talked to people about what the most, given that we can't do everything in every area, what we should be looking at. And that's something we heard as well, hence Freya mentioning things like the House on the High Street model, where it makes sense to put these services. And we've been doing quite a lot of talking to some of the community groups about patient transport and the support they provide to people to get them to the site as well, and making sure their views are taken in. So just as a rounded picture to what you're saying, whilst also thinking about air pollution and things on the site and the traffic, and there's a whole myriad of things. But yeah.
Our Vice Chairman Andy Soloway has some words of wisdom for us.
Maybe not. First of all, Councillor Brown came up with the problem that at the moment these PFI initiatives that were instituted by the government probably 20 odd years ago are now costing the NHS huge amounts of money. I am cautiously reassured that that won't happen, but cautiously, I think, is the word. The second, you talk about community-led facilities. I welcome that. There are a number of buildings locally that could be used for that. I seem to go into, whenever I go into Skipton General Hospital, it seems like most people are rattling around the place and it's being rather underused. So that I would welcome that being brought more into providing that, because one of the main issues at Airedale Hospital, as you touched on, is patient transport, and it's extremely difficult to drop off and pick up people there if you are in some. It's difficult enough for the ambulances, but if you turn up there in a wheelchair accessible minibus, there really isn't anywhere to go. You're joining a queue. You're joining a queue sometimes as long as a queue for a ferry, and a lot of people rely on that kind of transport, whether it's provided publicly and they're coming from all over the place. My final point: are you having any input into this rather controversial bridge that's being proposed across the bypass? because that has caused some controversy in that area. It's not in my area, but I'm watching it with interest.
So on that last point, no. That's totally separate. Totally separate. Although whether it comes up in some of the conversations we're trying to have about access and transport generally. I'm going to pass over to Freya about the community aspect around it. But so on the PFI point, absolutely no PFI involved in this. We are totally funded through the government's national new hospital programme. So we can be actually categoric, not just cautious on that one. And you mentioned about the drop-offs as well. So I can also 100% say that will greatly improve. That's been really factored in as a key part of it. And as is the planning about entrances, where they are to the car park. I mean, one of the other things with Airedale that people know is it can be quite confusing knowing where you're going for which service and the different entrances. And so there should be a much better flow of that. And we're really taking that into account. So those are the assurances I can give you. Just before Freya picks up about the community services, because we are 100% funded from the government, we have to follow certain directions, and there's conditions of funding, one of which is we can only use the funding for buildings and estate we own. And there's quite a lot of our community estate we do not own. We rent space, so it does restrict us in terms of what we could invest in certain buildings. So it was just to explain some of that as well before Freya comes in.
Point around Skipton is well made. It's an old building that's bits of things have been built on, and it doesn't actually flow in the same way. And I think taking the opportunity to think about a new hospital and how that should be arranged, and then the key adjacencies, has really made me think about how we should really maximise the estate off site and look at how we can improve that. It's complex, as Ellie said. We don't own those buildings. We are in there with partners, so the care trust, the local authority, often are tenants alongside us. But there is a real drive to make more sense for patients and maximise services that patients can attend at Skipton. So it is in the plan, but it's not an easy answer.
Thank you. Councillor Mr. David Nolan, please. I think I've got your title right this time.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really pleased about the PFI. It's been an absolute rip-off of public finances, so I agree with Councillor Holloway. Second question, or second point, is Skipton General, is that you're saying is not owned? We're renting that?
NHSPS building.
PS?
Which is property services. So we're tenants within that.
Right. Right. So are you suggesting that any revamping of services within Skipton wouldn't occur there? Is that what you're saying?
Having conversations with NHSPS around improving it and working together with our partners around that. So a lot of it works with this idea of integrated neighbourhood health. So how do we co-locate people that wrap around that patient, that support them, instead of us having everyone in different buildings? So we're looking at how we can support that with the assets we've got.
Right. Could you put that into English? Because I really struggle with that sentence. Did anybody else?
Yeah.
It just sounded like marketing speak.
Yeah.
Okay.
It isn't. It's maybe health.
Are you looking to put? I mean, my partner's son recently had to have a blood test. I had to go from Skipton to Airedale. It's like, why is he having to go 6-8 miles down the road to Airedale when he should be able to walk into the local doctors or Skipton General? So are you looking to put those expanded services there? Because it seems the most sensible site to do so.
Yeah, we're looking at how we can improve what we deliver from Skipton Hospital.
Okay, thank you. Third one, I'm going to disagree with my colleague, Councillor Andy Brown. I don't think it's a short walk from the railway station, especially if you're infirm, you're old, you're ill, you go to hospital probably because you're a bit sick. Whoops. So the railway station's in the wrong place. I've argued I'd like a new railway station. That's not happening. So, you know, that's before anybody else, especially Councillor Davey, jumps in there and goes, you're in fairy tale land there. But it's obviously in the wrong place. It's the railway station in the middle of nowhere. It should have been built next to the hospital. There's still going to be this problem of people getting from the railway station to the hospital. So that's not solved. It would be a little bit shorter if you could get that access along the railway station. So that's a good, a little bit shorter, but you're still walking. So can you look into shuttle buses from the railway station? I don't know. And the last point you mentioned energy, but what's being done to generate energy on site? I mean, this came to you came to Scrutiny of Health Committee, which I sit on, and there was another council who suggested solar panels on the car park, and he wasn't one of these woke progressive Greens that are polluting the landscape. He's just an ordinary councillor. So what about generating energy? And you might well say that the car park's been sold off and is run by a private company. But okay, so what is being done to generate the massive energy need on site? Either solar panels on the roof, air source heat pumps. I mean, what I'd like to know, what have you explored there?
Well, there will be solar panels on the car park. That's gone in and be, you know, part of the plans and everything. So that's the only building that is actually designed fully and has gone in for the planning application. All of those bits, I'm not trying to be evasive, but we can't answer because that's all being worked through as part of the design of the hospital. So obviously we're all talking about design in terms of the concept and how it will look, but there's a huge engineering piece, sustainability piece going on by different experts looking at that as part of the design work. So we hopefully will be able to update you on that when we come back and talk about what it actually looks like. But there's a real emphasis on sustainability, energy, you know, as part of that and what we do. So yes, that's one of our challenges.
Just from my point of view, we obviously have good progress going on, which is really pleasing to see. The dates aren't getting kicked back, which is something that's rare in government things. We even know that from North Yorkshire that things tend to get delayed. So really pleased that we're sticking to our timetable. The other thing, discharge. I think that's where we come in for North Yorkshire, and we always seem to have difficulties around discharge, making sure patients are actually fit enough to be discharged. And I'm hoping that this hospital takes into account that side of, you know, where we are, so patients are at a fit state to be moved on, so that then the local authorities can look after them, that we put our estate in place so that we can make sure this new hospital works and we aren't the logjam at the end of it. And the other thing is there anything at any stage of this that you think North Yorkshire as a local authority or we as individual members should be helping with to drive forward? I mean, I'm thinking of our individual GP practices where you might be wanting to outsource stuff. Should we be starting to lobby them to start looking at what services they're going to be delivering into the future? But my area is obviously Grassington. We've got the Grassington Medical Centre. It's a good medical centre, but it's literally GP appointments and then out the door, and all the diagnostics are done elsewhere. So is there something that we need to be starting to look at on the way into Airedale, if you know what I mean, as well?
Thank you. I'll take them points up. So the first thing is when I talked about our target operating model workshops, we had local authority there, and we were looking at how we can work together within health and local authority to improve pathways for patients. So a lot of conversations were about discharge and around actually stopping people that don't need to go into hospital so admission avoidance work. We have got really strong links, and actually we're just starting our discharge to assess for North Yorkshire. So that means that if you're ready, you're fit enough to go home, that a coordinated approach is taken with the health service and the the council in getting you home and making sure you have services that wrap around you on the day of discharge. So we're doing an awful lot around supporting that element. It is helped when we have opportunities to integrate teams. So going back to the estates, you know, sometimes teams are in separate buildings and don't work as a true MDT. So it would help the co-location of health and social care staff is, I believe, a really great enabler to do that. So that's where we are. What your point about GPs, we are having conversations with GPs about. I think someone said from COVID, we did deliver some services within GP practices, and in COVID and their estates. Challenges means that we don't do as much as we did, and I think we are trying to make inroads with that. So when new developments are happening within primary care, people are saying, what else should we provide as a coordinated approach in that one-stop approach to primary and community services? So I've not got any firm answers, but I know one of the one of the Skipton GPs approached the team to say that they're having an extension and what else could we do around that together. So those conversations are starting, which is really encouraging. I think that integration piece is a real strong thing to do around, you know, making sure people's needs are taken into consideration, whether they're health or social care needs.
Dick Brown, I believe you want to come back briefly.
Just very quickly.
And then I'm going to wind this one up.
Just very quick. Say that my colleagues have been talking about Skipton Hospital. Well, the Harrogate Hospital Trust has invested quite a lot of money in Ripon, and it works really well. You can go in there for X-rays, and they're done. You don't have to book in or just go for bloods and all the rest of it. So that's perhaps something that you could consider for Skipton. I think that's apart from the fact you will be no doubt coming to the scrutiny of health or appearing at the scrutiny of health committee. Could I make a plea that you circulate the report in advance and that we get a copy of your presentation? I don't think we've had that, have we?
Yeah, we would do the scrutiny just before Christmas, but I think you ran out of time for us. But you hopefully did get the slides from that circulated. The ones from today will be as well.
The same one.
These are updated because things have moved on even more since then. But yes, so this is the latest version. But yes, we will be coming back to talk about the design when we get at that point.
Okay, but if you circulate, it just shortens the time factor a little bit. Thank you.
Members, this new hospital at Airedale is certainly, in my mind, the most important critical project we are likely to be involved in for generations to come, and it will affect the well-being and health of not just our generation, but for years and years and years to come. Please just get on with it. When you look, it's all going to be into a hub by 2040. If I'm still here, I'll be 96. And I don't want a single room. I need some company. Thank you very much. It's Miss Nossiter and Miss Sledding, isn't it? Thank you very much, girls. We've taken some time on that, but our public need to be up to date with it. We've a number of items still to do on this agenda. So is it all right if we get up a gear, a 3? Wyvern Link Road, I believe, Miss Clark, that you have a report which you're going to speak briefly to, and then ask some questions.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, I know members were expecting a sort of formal report on this. We have had a briefing note from the major projects team, which you should have in front of you, a single-sided A4 that should be there. So the briefing note gives a bit of background about the proposed Wyvern Link Road. Members recall at the 4th of December meeting that an additional recommendation was added, that the officers submit a draft business case for consideration by the executive within 6 months. Please note there's a typo at paragraph 3.2, which should refer to phase 1 rather than phase 2. Phase 1 was completed on time, and there have been significant issues identified concerning flood resilience and operational performance of the scheme. Further internal work is now required to consider the issues raised, and unfortunately the scheme has not yet reached an appropriate stage to allow a draft business case to be prepared for consideration by the executive. The officers are sort of working on this, and if members do have any questions, I can certainly raise those with the major projects team. Thank you.
Glacial forces shape the landscape in this part of the world, and particularly my part of the world. The drumlins of, the Gargrave drumlin field are very well known, and they were created over millions of years. Hexgill has taken a considerable amount of time to develop, but we know that that's going to happen, and that it will be open later this year. This has been on the drawing board since I started as a councillor, and that's 15 years. And we're talking about 3/4 of a mile of road, if that, aren't we? So it's really gratifying to know that all this work has identified something which we knew about 10 years ago, certainly. There were issues to do with flood resilience. We knew that, and we did work on mitigating that. But I'm pleased that the major projects team have now picked up on that. I'd like to stress to them that it is very urgent that we get on with this. It is part of an overall scheme, was very important to the relief of traffic in Skipton and the cessation of heavy goods vehicles using the very dangerous turn from Broughton Road up to Engine Shed Lane. And much money was spent on other aspects of this scheme, including the new waste depot. We would not have put the waste depot there if we weren't building this road. So all I can say is I know every previous member of Craven District Council. We were all agreed on this. We pushed and pushed and pushed, and local government reorganisation has delayed it, and we appreciate that. But we really need to see this delivered. Not a question, but it's just a whinge, Chairman. But I'm quite bored of this being on a. I'm tired of this being on the agenda. I don't want to see it on an agenda.
Joint whinge, but also the Environment Agency for being glacial in amongst this and delaying this scheme so that we couldn't do it when we were Craven District, and now it's become a North Yorkshire scheme. My second point is that this road was always probably going to flood at certain times of extreme water. We knew that. We have roads all over North Yorkshire that flood in times of extreme water. That doesn't mean we shouldn't put this road in. It just means that in extreme water at peak flow around the county, which happens, there might be a flooding on this road. It probably won't stop HGVs driving across it. It might stop somebody in a small car going. We have roads where a light comes on if the water comes over the road and it tells you the road's flooded, road closed, go a different way. We've got all this technology. Surely it isn't beyond the wit of man to get on and get this in place, done, and the scheme up and running, so that when this road does flood, a light comes on and says, please don't go across it in your car, and if you do, you do it at your own risk. And then let's get on, let's get it in, and let's get probably thousands of wagons out of Skipton Town Centre, which is what it is, that don't need to be there. But for it's not, I don't think it's miles of road, it's 200 yards of road. the public drive past and see both ends of this road and the bit in the middle that isn't there and wonder when it's going to get done. So can we just get on with it? And I move that we note the report, Chair, and that we note its progress. And please, next time a report comes, can we have the scheme? And can we have it by July 2026, please?
Case, just come and walk around part of Skipton West Grade and see the problems that not having this link road does. The positives are what it links to. It would link to a major employment site. It would link to a state-of-the-art sports centre, and it would, as Simon says, it would link to the council refuse yard, which we built on the proviso that this was going to be built. It would drastically change the way traffic flows in Skipton if you had this. Interestingly, I am reliably informed that a lot of HGV driving schools come through Skipton because it's incredibly good practice for them to learn. If we put this link road in, there probably wouldn't be as many come in because it would be easier to access. But a lot of HGV schools come through because it is extremely good practice for their drivers. If you can negotiate Skipton, you can negotiate anywhere. So please bring this forward. I'm disappointed that we have not got it forward, and I would second trying to get this done. Let's get it done by this council. This council.
Thank you.
That's me.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I won't go into the sort of flowery oratory that's gone before me, but to put it simply, 3.1 got me all excited. It sounded like something was happening. We were on track. 3.2 left me crestfallen because it just seems to really take away any hope that anything's happening apace. So I think the author of the report maybe could do with fleshing out with 3.3 that isn't there to give us some timescales. We really need to know timescales. We've had platitudes. Can we have timescales? Yeah, but it doesn't. So because phase 2 completed and now further work is now required. Further work. What's that? That's a blank check. I'm sorry. I don't care if it's internal, external, or up the drain pipe. The fact of the matter is, it doesn't give us a timescale, and timescales are the thing that we're looking at here, because we've been promised this for so many years, and it has not been delivered for whatever reasons, for whoever's fingerprints are on this. It doesn't matter. Can we please move on and get to the point where we have some reasonable timescales and understand what it is that's holding it up, if it is holding it up? So, as I say, 3.3 that's missing. I would have liked to see that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think if you're going to get executive members involved, Chairman, you ought to be inviting Councillor Taylor, Malcolm Taylor, who is executive for this particular project, isn't it? Perhaps the committee want to invite him.
It's something that's within our remit to send a constructive letter to the executive, and perhaps the two executive members could help us concoct that. Yeah, agreed. Thank you. Annual school update report. Who do we have for this?
Thank you, Chair. We've got John Holden on the Teams call, and we've also got Chris Reynolds that are here to give this update.
Which Andy? Which is it?
John.
No, what I have a request from a member who needs to leave us, and he's asked that item 9 be taken now. That Ripon Mobility update. So we'll do item 9 next. Sorry to Mr. Holden for having to wait, but
It's okay, Chair.
Can everybody hear me?
so this is Miss Moore.
That's me. Hi.
Hi.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Excellent. That's great. So the report that you've got today provides an update on the work undertaken to explore whether a mobility hub in Ripon would be a feasible option. The study represents the first stage of business case process, looking at whether there's a clear need for intervention and what the potential benefits could be. The transport challenges that Ripon faces are recognised in the report, particularly around congestion, gaps in active travel connectivity, and the significant constraints associated with the limited access to rail services via Thirsk, which obviously affects how easily people can connect to wider regional opportunities. The findings of the report are encouraging and very positive, and the study shows that a mobility hub could really improve sustainable travel choices, including that better active travel provision, public transport options, support wider council objectives such as reducing carbon emissions, improving air quality, supporting economic growth and enhancing the overall experience for our transport users. And it'll also help to revitalise the city centre by making it more attractive and accessible, increasing that footfall and hopefully supporting our lovely local businesses. So the work completed is more detailed, or the original piece of work completed is more detailed than is typically required at this early stage, meaning that we already have a strong foundation if members wish to move this forward to the next stage of development. So in summary, the feasibility study is showing that Ripon Mobility Hub is a credible and deliverable option in principle, and it offers clear positive outcomes for connectivity, sustainability and the economic vitality of the city. So I'd just welcome any questions.
Thanks, Chair, for taking this early. I have to say that it would have been helpful had local members been consulted on the actual 3 options within the report before the report actually came forward, because I have to say that I'm not actually in favour of either of them, because I think that what we actually need is a hybrid of B and C. And I'll explain why. That my concern is much less about the 9 satellite hubs that are quoted within option C, which seem to be a luxury that we can probably do without. But my greater concern is that the ruling out of major bus station redevelopment actually misses the whole purpose of me having brought this forward in the first place, which is that we've got a large area with coaches parked on it at the moment during the summer, and the central area isn't necessarily the best place for those coaches to be parked in, given that we have a problem in identifying anywhere else where you can actually park cars, and we are due to have we've already had around 800 new properties built around Ripon over the last few years. We are due to have 1,500 more over the next few years, and there is real pressure on car parking, and so therefore finding a location that the coaches can park, can drop off and then park elsewhere, and free the coach park up to actually provide potentially more car parking is a major consideration, which unfortunately is being discounted within this report. I think we are missing an opportunity as a result. I understand cost constraints and all the rest of it, but the whole idea was to seek a complete repurposing of that central area there, because it isn't best utilised at the moment.
Thank you. Do
Before
you
I
want me
bring
to
An-
speak to that?
Before I bring Andy Brown in, you can answer questions one or two together, please.
Yeah.
If we're trying to home down onto an option today, then whatever that option is, whether it's a mixture, become mix a bit like Woolworths used to be, that option has to be feasible and it has to be achievable, both in finance terms and what will work on the ground. Andy Brown. Otherwise,
Yeah, I think both points are sound, and the clue to putting them together is the Clotherholme development. I'm disappointed not to see the links because some of us, I think 3 of us last week, were at the public meeting about how to take that forward. And there is a lot of money from the Clotherholme development for transport improvements. And it strikes me that that's the way to finance this, is to tie the two things together. And I do think actually the hybrid of B and C is the sound way forward. And I do think there is enough money from Clotherholme if we make intelligent links to do it. And I haven't seen signs of an awareness that exists at all as a really significant chunk of money that could be frittered away on pretty minor stuff unless we get it into this. So I think the key thing here is that this was intended to be a very high level update, and there's detail in the report, like the Clotherholme development and the much of the other development that's going on in the city that are actually included and considered within the context of the report that you haven't yet seen. So the report isn't completed, but before we move on to the next stage of work, you will get an opportunity to feed into those kind of options that are taken forward to that next stage of development and support the kind of the way forward really, and to select the way forward. So I apologise, the kind of level of detail here is very high because of the stage of development of the report. So we will be bringing that back to you to make further decisions and include that detail. No decisions have yet been made.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Williams' points sound very familiar. I've had pretty much the same conversation some years ago as a Craven District Council about Skipton, where you have coaches coming in, which obviously in many respects are welcomed, the footfall that they bring to the high street. But then what you do with them when they're sat empty is the issue, and the capacity that they take up in our car parks. I think obviously we've been asked to note this report, and option B being the preferred option as such, but I don't see any reason why we cannot make an alternative suggestion based on the fact that we're noting the report. Councillor Williams, obviously it's his stomping ground, so he'd probably be probably in a better position to give a more informed nuance to that. But I think broadly speaking, what I heard makes a lot more sense. Have you parking for your PSVs out of the town centre and use what parking you've got there, hard standing, rather than trying to create more elsewhere, because I can't imagine anything worse than trying to create another car park in the centre of Ripon. Use what you've got and then utilise sites out of the centre for the PSV. It certainly sounds a lot more sensible to me. So I don't know. I'll leave that to Councillor Williams to concoct.
And Myers in. If we're working towards a hybrid of B and C, then it's going to take more resource than what B would on its own. So whatever you move to make progress, try and identify where you're going to get brass from, please. Mr. Myers.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. So I think probably the solution is to note to ask that in developing the fuller report, that officers have a mind to engaging with local members and have a mind to the fact that this area committee favours, in principle, the redevelopment of the bus station. that we would like the report to look at possible sources of funding for that, including that of the new major developments in Ripon. Yeah, but not to discount it simply because it looks to be too big a job. Let's see if we can find the money and where it might come from. So that would be my proposal, Chair.
Are you proposing that then? Is that seconded? Andrew, thank you. Right, I don't think, would you like to come back before we...
No, I think we've covered everything there, and yeah, happy to consult members once we've got the final version of the report.
Mrs. Cunliffe, please.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions from me. And I'm sorry not to understand the lingo on this, but what is a mobility hub? When you're talking about the redevelopment or not at the bus station, is a mobility hub the space that people sit and wait for a bus in, or is that something else? And I've just got another question, which was to do with there's explicit reference to the bus to Thirsk being improved, which is excellent news. But because you're not referencing any other routes, that slightly worries me in the sense that does that preclude any other routes improving? For example, if the bus from Massam to Ripon would ever one day be regular and frequent and reliable, are we saying that there wouldn't be capacity for any other improved routes? I just want to understand your thinking behind that.
So the report recognises all the major bus routes. It looks at all of the travel patterns. I think the issue is that when we come to look at sustainable travel in particular, and we want to get people moving on public transport, the only obviously local regional access is people have to travel to either Thirsk or Harrogate to get a train. So I think we wanted to focus on making sure that the connectivity was there so that people could go further and kind of access those wider regional opportunities first. But that doesn't mean that we're not considering kind of those other options as well.
Sorry, my point was that this is a hub for people to connect to another bus. It's not necessarily a hub that's going to get people to a train station, and that's what's so important about these rural routes, is connecting to a major route on a bus.
Yeah, so the actual point of this mobility hub, obviously it's scaled at different levels on option B and C, but it's meant to provide multimodal opportunities. So you're right, connecting to alternative services via public transport, but also picking up an e-bike or an e-scooter or jumping in an electric car.
Andy Brown is again troubled by afterthought.
Incredibly quick, just the bus route to Clotherholme is rather important to make sure there's room for.
And could Andrew Williams wind the debate up, please?
I'll happily wind people up. More than happy to do that. Yeah, indeed. Yes, I've had many years' practice. Yeah. Can I just say that I know I was slightly critical in my opening remarks, but I do welcome the progress that's been made, and I also welcome the support of this committee in actually getting this off the ground. The only thing I would register are 2 points, which are firstly that one of the big service improvements can be made without any infrastructure improvement at all, and that's the improving of the link between Ripon and Thirsk. And the reason why that is critically important is because Thirsk station offers the opportunity to connect to the main line and to pick up the Transpennine services. So you can go northeast and you can go northwest. The link effectively that's available on the 36 bus to take you into Harrogate simply connects you onto the branch line at Harrogate to then have to either go to Leeds or over to York before you can actually start your journey as to where you want to go. And so this is incredibly important in terms of opening up the ability of residents in Ripon and the surrounding rural hinterland, which is a large number of people, to be able to access proper rail services in a way in which they can't via Harrogate. And so it's incredibly important the bus service actually meets the train timetable, because at the moment you could catch the bus and be waiting nearly as long for the train to come as a consequence. So this could have a real major economic benefit for the Ripon area, and it could also significantly reduce traffic volumes of people taking their car to go and get the train. So on that, I'm happy to wind up.
Round, Nick.
I want to back what Councillor Williams has said. First Station is a major hub, in my view, to get to London and all the other places that people want to go to. It's going to have new lifts at the station, which will be really important for disabled people, etc., and for people with luggage. So I totally back what Councillor Williams has said, and hopefully we can get on with this as soon as possible. Rather like the Wyvern Road scenario, hopefully, that we can make try and make this a priority, because it's really important for the city of Ripon.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So just confirming that members are minded to approve the 2 recommendations outlined in the report, with the addition of Councillor Myers' recommendation to ask that in developing the fuller report, that officers are minded to engage with local members, and that this area committee favours in principle the redevelopment of the bus station and would like the report to look at possible funding for this, which was proposed by Councillor Myers and seconded by Councillor Williams. But could I just get a proposer and seconder for those 3 recommendations, please?
That takes us back to item 8, annual school update report. Did someone suggest that we took questions from members to the officer? Do we have John Holden still here? Has he gone for lunch?
No, still here, Chair, and I'm joined by Chris Reynolds, who's the head of Send and Resources. So we will either seek to answer questions that are raised. It is a quite broad-ranging report, so if either of us cannot answer any of the questions, we'll come back with a written response through you.
Perhaps just a 2 minutes overview, please.
Can do, Chair, sorry. So this report is an annual report that's provided to the committee on a range of issues relating to schools. It largely provides data as at 31st of August 2025, which is the end of the last academic year. So that's giving consistency from the previous annual report. At that time, there were 73 schools and academies across the committee's area. Members will have seen that the report provides information about school standards, suspensions and exclusions, SEND, school funding, and the planning of school places. As I say, I'm joined by Chris Reynolds, who's the head of SEND and Resources, and we will seek to answer questions now, or again, we'll provide written responses in the event we're not able to.
Please.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, it's a little peripheral. I have a school, Forest Moor School, in my division, which some people who work there are very unhappy about what's happening at that school. And of course, for those of you who don't know, it has some of the most challenging young people in that school. But nonetheless, I've written to officers to draw this to their attention, but not received a reply. So I'd like to just register here that there are concerns about how the Forest Moor School is managing. I realise, of course, it's a part of the Wellspring Academy, and therefore perhaps a bit more limited. But nonetheless, I want to make sure that you're aware of that potential problems.
We'll take that on board. Yeah, you're correct. They are an academy under the Wellspring Trust banner, but we are able to pick up those concerns with the trust and alert them to them. I guess regardless of what the nature of the concerns are, would determine what the response is. I guess through the trust or through the local authority.
Well, I'll write directly to you then, Chris, with the problem as it's been reported to me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just two issues really. Firstly, the number of exclusions since academies got established is mounting as many of us predicted, and is really worrying because they can take the decision to remove somebody from their school, and some of the responsibility for that gets picked up by North Yorkshire Council's pupil referral units, etc. So that's really disturbing that trend has been there. The second point I wanted to make is the contrast between the figures you see here and the experience I have as a local councillor asking for a school place. South Craven School, for instance, it shows here that there are more places on roll 1907 than there are pupils 1806, kind of going through to 1708. And so it looks like there's plenty of space. When I talk to the school, they tell me that they're absolutely jam-packed. They're 30 over roll, and I can't possibly get a child into school. So one of my young children recently had to go as far as Settle College from Cononley as the only place that had space. So the figures contradict our experience when we ask the schools, have you got place for a pupil? It's quite interesting.
Can I take the second question first, and then perhaps Chris will be able to comment on the first? The figures that we present are taken from the last census, so are accurate. Perhaps, and clearly I can't go into the individual circumstances of anyone seeking to apply. It could be that there are issues with particular year groups within the school, or it could be that if an applicant applies for a place during the course of an academic year, a school says, well, there will be an undue impact on the resources available to them to be able to accept a pupil. But the information that we've provided is accurate, as I said previously, as at the 31st of August. If there are individual circumstances that you would like us to investigate, by all means, let me know and I can come back with a written response.
Just the contrast between the head teacher telling me it was 30 pupils already oversubscribed and had no space in any year, and your statistics telling me there's no problem. But so there's obviously two different sources of information, because I think that head teacher was telling me the truth, and it wasn't simply they didn't want to take the kid.
That's noted, Chair. Again, all I can say is the information provided in the report is information arising from the last school census and information that we have about the capacity of the school.
Just on the first matter, I think you raised suspensions and exclusions, and you're absolutely right too. It is a concern, I guess, regionally and nationally. What I would say on that is that there doesn't appear in our data to be a huge correlation between multi-academy trusts or maintained schools in that. So we've seen suspensions slightly drop last year. We're monitoring that closely in case. So if that's a downward trend and remains the same and falls year on year, that is a positive. But as we stand, that's just 1 year's figures. And we do see permanent exclusions as being too high. Any exclusion of a child feels too high for us. So we are putting additional support in around inclusive mainstream toolkits for mainstream schools. But I just wanted to just be clear, I don't think we see in our data a real correlation between multi-academy trusts and the difference between those and maintained schools in terms of exclusion.
Thank you, Chairman. Morning, John. There you are, hiding away. Last time I think we spoke is about Settle Middle School several times. Oh, former Settle Middle School, should I say. Right. Yeah, another school, Settle College. In this report, there's obviously a lot of talk about the finances and the pressures and capacity within the school. clearly home to school transport has had an impact on the financial pressures of establishments like Settle College, and I think that's borne out through the numbers that we see, although there's obviously limited detail there. How are we supporting them going forward? Because obviously there's talk about various cost pressures and so on, but it doesn't actually mention the cost pressures caused by our own policy. So, and I wouldn't want to think we were going to leave them high and dry, particularly seeing as one of my children actually attends that establishment. So, could I ask, how are we what does the support look like that we're giving Settle College as they adjust to their new pupil levels?
Will I take that question from a wider context, Councillor Staveley, with your consent? And the numbers that attend schools reflect a whole number of different factors. There is, in general terms, a reduction in the birth rate, and that's reflected in many of the figures that are presented in the appendix. There are a range of factors, as we've often described, that affect parents' applications for a place for their child, and that does reflect things like Ofsted judgments. It reflects kind of the broader curriculum offer, and of course it does reflect access to home school transport on occasions. What the council said at the time that the home school travel policy was agreed in July 24 was that individual schools would be supported to monitor the impact or any impacts arising from the policy that may have on their pupil numbers, and those discussions continue with individual establishments. It's hard to be specific as to exactly what support will be provided because, of course, it will affect a range of different circumstances and each school will be different. But that ongoing monitoring with schools will be undertaken. As members will be aware, the council has undertaken a post-implementation review of the home school travel policy, and we undertook to, of course, look at potential impacts on schools arising from that policy within the review.
Thank you, John. I mean, I know the birth rate's falling. I'm doing my best. I've come up with 3 of my own. Yeah, I'm just because I'm looking at the projected numbers just as an example on Settle College, and we've had during the discussions with the college themselves, there's been projections of upcoming years and the intake increasing, and I'm just a little concerned that the numbers we've got here suggest that by 29-30 they're going to drop even further, which is a little bit of a worry because I am concerned that the viability of the establishment is affected. So yeah, I mean, obviously there's been talk about the supporting them through this transition period, but I am very keen to make sure that is held as a priority, because I would hate to think that we were going to be in a situation where the nearest school or North Yorkshire school for the north of Craven would be in Skipton. It's quite some way away. Thank you.
That's noted, Chair.
Take a full-blown debate on home to school transport. Right, on that understanding then.
Just to say, I mean, I used to be in charge of £2 billion of school funding each year in the north, and to state the facts of it, the school will be funded on the basis of the number of pupils it has, and there is no mechanism I'm aware of to give them actually more money. So the problem is very real. The monitoring is all very well, but monitoring needs to come with cash, and it can't.
Chair, I didn't want to infer that funding arrangements could move away from the national funding formula. It's correct to say funding is provided on headcount, but that support will be from educational colleagues, perhaps in discussion with the school about their offer. It could be in a whole range of different ways to assist the school in the event that there is an impact of the homeschool travel policy. And again, the post-implementation review is being undertaken to take account of the first full year's implementation of the policy.
Just to ask another question about the conversations you've been having with Settle College. in your conversations with them, have you discussed the provision that they've made themselves to provide transport, which I understand they're no longer able to do? They're not in a financial position to keep delivering. Because I appreciate we can't just pay for funding for pupils because that doesn't come from county resource. But you must have had that conversation about that the loss of that provision of transport and the impact that that has had on the school. Can you just enlighten me on that?
Well, I think it's probably appropriate to say that discussions with schools take account of a range of circumstances. It takes account of offers that they've made to provide transport, their ability to continue to do so, other factors that their governing boards wish to bring into the discussion. Perhaps take offline, if necessary, a conversation about those conversations with Settle College, with the member who asked the question.
Is it in order then if we note this report and thank these two gentlemen? Fun?
Thank you, Chair.
You thought what? Sorry, I missed you, David.
I indicated to you, I thought you'd taken me that I wanted to speak.
My apologies.
Yeah. I fully agree with Councillor Brown about the way they would appear to calculate whether a school has got capacity or not. What I've been told, it seems to be about catchment area, and they don't seem to be counting children that are coming to various schools out of catchment area. And so therefore the school can be full, but they think there's still capacity. That is not what I indicated originally for Chairman. And this may be the wrong place to raise this, but I'm concerned, I'm concerned that North Yorkshire has 4,200 houses to provide, according to the government on planning. But we do not seem to be taking developer contributions to deal with the infrastructure of our education establishments. And that seriously needs looking at. And again, this comes to the way they calculate whether a school is full. Ingleton Primary School, I am told that it's at capacity. The Education Authority tells me it's not. And they tell me it's not because a lot of children, they're either nursery or they're out of catchment area. So therefore they cannot ask a developer for a contribution. So that needs addressing, and it needs addressing pretty damn quick. Otherwise we're in trouble. I don't know whether it's the right forum this, but I could do with speaking with someone on that. Thank you.
Chair, could you just answer the question in general terms, and then I'll contact Councillor Ayrton about the specific question. So in general terms, capacity of a school is calculated in accordance with a formula that the DFE put down. They're actually reviewing that formula currently and reviewing capacities of individual schools and academies. What we do when housing is proposed in an individual area, we do as a council seek developer contributions if additional places are required arising from that development. Some of those agreements are very specific in terms of how those places and where those places should be provided. But if I can give an assurance now that we do seek contributions towards those additional places if and when they are required. Clearly, that's a calculation undertaken at the time, both that applications are received and then developments are undertaken to determine whether places are required in the local school, whether that contribution should be sought.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm fully aware of getting contributions and how much to get per child if it is needed.
Yeah.
And this is where the problem is. The Education Authority are saying they're not needed because the school is not full on their reckoning. But the schools actually are full, and that's the bit that they're missing out on. That's what I've been told. So I look forward to a conversation with you, John. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll note that report then, can we? All right. Nobody else want to contribute? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. That takes us to the last substantial item on the order paper, which is Nick Brown's favourite topic. His personal energy costs. Harriet, I believe your paper you presented.
Thank you, Chair. So the Area Committee has previously requested an update on rural energy policies and local fuel pricing disparity, particularly in relation to petrol price variations. The report covers a Skipton and Ripon household energy fuel profile, as well as some of the factors that contribute to increased household energy costs. Some of the key rural energy policies affecting the constituency area are noted, including the Council's Choices for Energy programme, and paragraph 6.3 provides a summary of fuel prices across various locations in the Skipton and Ripon area. Members are asked to note the contents of the report, and if there's any questions, let me know.
I shan't be speaking for 40 minutes, I can assure you. My parking runs out in about 5. Can I just thank Harriet very much? I'm sorry if I called you Helen earlier on, I think. But Harriet, you've done a very good report, and it's very interesting. I've just got 2 little points to make. Item 5, rural energy policies. Really, I've been missing the plot, obviously, because I know nothing about any of these organisations. I don't know about Choice for Energy. I don't know whether anybody else does, but it suddenly emerged here that it's a free impartial energy service available to all North Yorkshire residents. I've never heard of this body before. So could we have a little bit more detail of all these York and North Yorkshire local area energy plans, LAEPs, which I'm not very much aware of? If you wouldn't mind circulating further details of each of these bodies. My only, I think the table you've shown in item 6.3 is quite interesting. You haven't included Morrison's in Ripon in this because it's okay. Bearing in mind this is before the increases, although a lot of fuel stations have not actually increased yet to reflect some have to reflect the problems in the Middle East. But certainly I know that the Morrison's in Skipton is a lot cheaper. It's gone up, I think, about 4p this morning, I think. But in Ripon and in Borough Bridge, for example, they're charging exceedingly more than these figures, and I don't understand why. I'd be very interested to know why that is. Well, that's probably true, but it still doesn't justify it, in my view. Because people living in rural areas have a lot of extra cost, as we all know, because we represent rural areas significantly, and it's not fair. It's not equitable. I don't need to mention the heating oil scenario, but that is totally ignored by the government. It seems to me they talk about electricity caps and everything else, but nothing is ever mentioned about oil prices, which are used in many of the constituencies that we represent, and it's not fair. Well, absolutely. My mother didn't either, Chairman. But anyway, seriously, I think it's a major issue that's costing our constituents right across the whole of Skipton and Ripon a lot of extra money.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, it is a frustration. I mean, yes, there's like 2 sites that are listed here. The one at Ingleton, the one at Settle. One at Ingleton's on the side of the A65, incredibly busy road. The other one's mode in Settle, which is off the main road now because Settle's bypassed. Ironically, it's cheaper on here by 3p a litre. Although I did note that they put the prices up already, I'm assuming to reflect some sort of market forces, whatever they may be, and it's now up to 151, I believe, 0.9 or thereabouts. So, is it? Yeah. So I think the problem is at the end of the day, the private businesses, they can charge you what they want. If you're paying it, they'll sell you it, and if you don't want to pay it, don't buy it. I mean, I hate to be so brutal, and it isn't pleasant when you feel as a resident that you're being taken advantage of, but that's free market economy. That's the nature of it. There's not a lot we can do. I mean, there was a scheme, I don't know if it's still running, that was brought in by the previous government to try and encourage, they sort of subsidise the cost in the lower the duty on fuel for what were considered remote communities. I think Hawes benefits from it, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, for example. But apart from that sort of market intervention, which we are not going to see in these lowlands, there's not a lot we're going to be able to do, Nick. Suck it up, Buttercup, because you're going to have to be paying a lot more for your fuel at the moment, because that's the way things are going. And as I say, I share your frustration. I spend an awful lot on fuel through work and one thing and another, and I find it as annoying as anybody. But there's nothing this committee is going to be able to do about it, apart from just flag it up to residents, and they will vote with their feet and their wallets accordingly.
Can I just respond to that, because I agree entirely with you. They're mostly private businesses. The government have brought in a scheme which people should look at to find their cheapest fuel locally, and every petrol station should contribute to that, in my view. And explain the reasons why. The Morrison's is, as I say, considerably less in Skipton than it is in Ripon or Boroughbridge. And I understand I was all my career. I was involved in the motor industry, as David knows, and we had petrol stations, and the margins that were charged or taken then are considerably less than the margins now, which retailers are taking, in my view. So there has been a sea change in margins among, I think it's probably because there's fewer forecourts around the country. But funnily enough, in rural areas, some of the smaller major like Shell and all these other petroleum companies, some of the smaller retailers are charging much less. And I know it's a competitive market, but I agree entirely with what you say. Yeah, but the public. Yeah. Yeah. I've been retired from it for a long, long time, so things have obviously changed. But anyway, that's my opinion, and I think there's been the putting the prices up and then taking a long time to reduce them when wholesale prices are reduced is not on, in my view.
Andrew Murday, thanks. I do use these schemes to advertise to local residents, social media and so forth, things like choices for energy. But what I don't get back is what's the uptake? And is there data on how much these schemes are taken up? I mean, am I just wasting my time putting it onto Facebook and putting it to parish councils? Do we know what the uptakes are?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I fully agree with Councillor Staveley that the pricing is up to the companies. They're private companies, and they'll run their businesses as they so wish. But the residents from Ingleton that wrote to the committee would like an explanation why the prices are different within such a short distance. Did we ever get a response to that letter you sent them?
No, we have not yet received a response from ASDA. I have been communicating with the resident in question, and I did explain that this was being brought to the agenda, and unfortunately they couldn't attend the meeting. But we have given a sort of response, and we'll keep chasing for that.
Yeah, thank you very much for bringing it to the committee. Nothing we can do, but you know, I do think that they're asking for an explanation why they're charging such a vast difference for the same fuel, even the same make. Thank you.
Better brains than mine, I'll no doubt work it out. And talking of that, Simon Myers.
It's a lovely debate, and I've really enjoyed every moment of it. I can tell you that baked beans at the co-op in Gargrave are more expensive than baked beans at the co-op in Earby, and I'm continually outraged by that as well. Can I move the? Yeah, same brand, same outfit. Can I move that we note the report and that we go home before we all get fined for parking over time?
Yeah. Having been well, firstly, I think I'd like to support Nick Brown. I mean, there are well-run businesses and private enterprises, and there are people that are ripping off our residents. And it's important we call out. I mean, particularly if there's going to be an oil price spike, and they're going to decide to put the prices up very quickly and then down very slowly afterwards. You know, when they're not actually yet paying the thing. So I think we should call them out, and we should call them out on the cynical pricing of you know, whatever the market will bear in that area. The other point I would just make, you know, just quietly, is that there's no increase in price of the electricity I'm downloading between 2 o'clock and 5 o'clock in the morning to run my car that costs me £8 a tank of electricity to run. And I just quibble with one point in the reports. Rural areas, you can very easily run an electric car because the vast majority are charged from home chargers. And it's actually probably easier to do that in a rural area where people have drives. The area that's difficult is terraces.
Any suggestions that we haven't got down on this paper already?
Could I do one very quick one? That it seems to me that there are some things that come forward that are real opportunities for us that we would like to engage with, that we don't really get a chance to do. And I'd like to see us have an opportunity to look at new sources of funding that might be helpful for the area. We've heard mention today of the community energy projects. And I think we might have had ideas of how we could take that forward. And also, I've come across a sustainable transport scheme from the mayor, £1 billion of funding, if I remember right, or £1 million, whatever it was. There's a lot of money. Yeah. So, you know, I think we should have on the agenda the opportunity to take up with recent funding, you know, because we said we can't do stuff because of money. And now they've got money coming in and we're not thinking about how we can do stuff with it. You know, so I'd like to reverse the equation.
I've been waiting quite a while for the USWEM modelling report to be completed, and it has been completed, I'm told, and they're getting it ready to be in a form that can be presented, which I think would be of interest to all of us because it's measures and ways in which natural flood management can control flooding. It might be something which we can engage with.
Just on the next meeting, there is a community safety and CCTV annual report. I am aware that North Yorkshire is currently conducting a full review of CCTV provision, but it does link to what's been going on at Skipton bus station and other areas. there was a temporary CCTV camera put in. It was very successful in moving problems away from the area, and it now isn't there. I have written to the executive member to see how short-term or urgent cases can feed in to the current review, because I thought that the North Yorkshire review wasn't annually, it was actually an overarching review. There are concerns that there are areas of North Yorkshire, particularly our property, that isn't covered by CCTV, like our bus stations.
Pull the agenda together for next time on, based on what members have said. Any other items? Certainly not. Date of next meeting, 4th of June, Thursday, 2026. The one thing that I have noticed today, I've been very impressed with the standard of debate, how sensible it's been, how virtually non-political it's been. And I personally appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Chairman, can I just stop? It says 2 o'clock. The next meeting. Is there a reason for that?
Yes, the reason for it is there are actually 2 area committees taking place that day. Harrogate and Knaresborough Area Committee is taking place at 10 o'clock, and due to live streaming, unfortunately, there can't be 2 committees on the same day, and we've drawn the short straw and getting the afternoon slot.
Right. Thank you very much, everybody. Well done. Well done.
Fourth.